Once upon a time, deep under the ground, there was a very secret place.
Where?
Under the ground. It was a magic cave. Very, very, very deep down. And in the magic cave, everything is back to front. So, for example, when you walk around, you don't walk on the ground, you walk on the ceiling. You're upside down. And the flowers, they don't grow up towards the sky, they grow downwards towards the center of Earth. Now, the other thing to know about this magic cave is about all the things which are inside the cave. For example, if there's a dog inside the cave, he doesn't wag his tail, he wags his head. And where you'd expect his head to be, it isn't. His tail is where his head is, and his head is where his tail should be. It's really back to front. And as you know, a spider normally has 8 legs. But in this magic cave, spiders only have 2 legs. And as you probably know, a horse has 4 legs, but in this cave, a horse has 12 legs. It's a very puzzling cave where everything is different. Now, the amazing thing is, when you open the cupboards, you won't believe what you find inside the cupboards in this magic cave. Do you want to have a guess? Well, if you open the cupboard marked toys, you will find lots of things that children don't like horrible tasting medicines and canes to spank their bottom. But if you open the cupboard called horrible medicines, it's full of toys. And the amazing thing is, the toys won't work if they've got batteries in them. You have to take the batteries out, and then they'll do everything you want. For example, there's a robot. Take the batteries out, and he'll follow all your instructions. Well, not quite. He'll do the opposite of what you say. So if you tell him to sit down, he'll stand up. If you tell him to stand up, he'll sit down. If you tell him to touch his nose, he'll wiggle his ears. If you tell him to wiggle his ears, he'll touch his nose. So this is a very strange cave where things are not what they seem. Anyway, one day, a little boy called Aiden, and that with his daddy, that's you and daddy, went down the steps, down, 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 down to explore the cave. We'd never been there. And as we got to the bottom of the cave, the steps went upside down, and we walked on the ceiling. It was very unusual to be upside down. And there, in the table, on the ceiling, there was a table. And on the table, there was a little bottle which said, "Drink me." So, we drank the bottle. And we became very, very small, like a mouse. Okay. And then we didn't know what to do to get big enough, because we couldn't get up onto the first step to get back up the stairs. It was like as high as a house, because we were so small. But then we found under the table a piece of cake, which was written, "Eat me." So we ate the cake, and we started to become bigger again. In fact, we became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until we're almost filling the room, and we're on the ceiling, pushing down on the floor, and our heads were getting squashed because we're getting bigger. So we quickly drank some more of the liquid, and then we were just the right size. Now, it was a very interesting cave, because inside the cave there were some flashlights, some torches. "Let's turn the torch on," said Daddy, "so we can see better." He pressed the button, but it didn't work. But Aiden knew what to do. He said, Daddy, you've got to take the batteries out." So Daddy took the batteries out, and then the torch worked perfectly. Except for one thing. When you turned it on, the torch turned off. When you turned it off, the torch turned on. Completely back to front. Now, we found a magic door inside the cave. and there was a key on the table. Let's open the door.
That's I forgot. This the girl called. Oh, I forget
Alice?
his name.
Alice?
Like Alice.
Oh yes, Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland.
The girl who goes to Wonderland. Yes, indeed, it's a bit like that, isn't it? So indeed, there was a door with a key, and we went through the door. Now, do you know what we saw on the other side?
Yes.
A big, long road with lots of bumper cars we could get in.
Is Wonderland?
No, we weren't in Wonderland. We were in a cave in Daddy's garden. It was a special cave. You haven't seen it. One day I'll take you down to the... Would you like to go to the cave with me one day?
Oh,
You've never been there, have
I
you?
don't go there.
Will you be frightened? Anyway, we went through the door, and there was this long road with bumper cars. So Daddy got in one car, and Aidan got in the other, and we started to drive down the road, bumping each other. It was such fun. Bump, bump, bump. Bumper cars are the cars with rubber around the edge, which you can bump into each other. You play it in the circus or the fairground. Anyway, we drove around the road, having bumping, and there were lots of other people driving cars and bumping everybody. It was great fun. And Aidan was very good at driving and steering the steering wheel and turning and pressing the accelerator. And then we finally got to the seaside. And when we got to the seaside, Aidan said, "Oh, Daddy, look, there's the sea and the sand and the beach. Let's go and play on the beach and build a sandcastle." So Daddy thought that was a good idea. So Aidan and Daddy, we went to the shop by the seaside shop, where they sell buckets and spades, and Daddy bought a bucket and spade.
But if they build a sandcastle, and sandcastle would melt.
Would dissolve in the water, you mean? Well, that's what we're planning to do. We got the bucket and spade, and we went down to near the edge of the sea, where the waves were coming, and we started to build a big castle. We filled the bucket with sand, and then put some damp water on it so it was more sticking together, turned upside down, patted it on the top and lifted up carefully, and it looked like a castle. And then we could see the waves were starting to come in, but they weren't touching our castle yet, but we thought it'd be a good idea to dig a moat around the castle. Do you know what a moat is?
I don't know.
A moat is it's a bit like a river, only it's still water, but basically you dig a trench around the castle. So if this is the castle here, you dig deep, all the way down there and fill it with water. And we went to the sea and got a bucket of water and poured it into our moat. And by doing that, it kept all the people who shouldn't come in our castle out. And now it was time for an ice cream. And we went to the ice cream shop, and they had all different kinds of flavours of ice cream. Do you have a favourite flavour?
My favourite is chocolate.
And they did indeed have several chocolate flavours. They had brown chocolate ice cream, and then they had stracciatella, I think it's called, which is an ice cream with little chocolate bits in it, like bits of chocolate. It's white chocolate with bits of, white ice cream with bits of brown chocolate. And then they had mint chocolate chip, which is another kind of ice cream with chips of chocolate in it. And they had chocolate and raisins. I wonder what you're going to choose.
I choose the chocolate.
Exactly. You had the brown one. I had chocolate and raisins. So my one was white chocolate with bits of chocolate and raisins inside, and your one was just brown, made of tasted of chocolate, and it was covered. Your one was covered in brown chocolate. Now, we both had our ice cream, and then it was time to drive home. So we jumped back in our bumper cars and raced down the road to see who could go the fastest. We both put our foot on the accelerator, went as fast as we could, and finally we got back into the cave. I won't tell you who won, because I guess you know. Who do you think won?
I don't know.
Daddy, of course. Daddy was the fastest. And when we were back in the cave, we then decided to have a look around. And on the wall was a map of the world. And the map was, above the map it was written, "Where do you want to go today?" So I said to Aidan, "Do you think we can go in this map and go somewhere in the planet?" And Aidan said, "We can try." So I said, "Where shall we go?" And Aidan said, "I want to go to Australia, that country right down here at the bottom of the map, down here." So
We have to fly there.
we normally have to take an aeroplane to get there, but we decided to try jumping inside the map. So we both put our hands together as if we're going to dive in the water, a little bit like this, and we dived, and into the map we tumbled. And guess what? We tumbled out and we landed in Australia. You could tell it was Australia because there were people throwing boomerangs, there were kangaroos, there was a large, lovely beach, and of course we saw the Sydney Opera House.
Also, Sydney Opera House.
Well, it's a big building which is very famous. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world, a real sight to see. I've never seen it really, but I've seen pictures of it. And of course you could tell it was Australia because there were all sorts of Tasmanian devils, wombats and weird things.
But there are also fire.
And there were bushfires, yes, of course we got bushfires in Australia, haven't we?
But actually the firemen came.
What did you say?
The fire engine came.
That's right. And then as we were there, suddenly a fire engine came to put out the bushfire. Da-doo, 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 it came. And then finally it braked and stopped. And the fireman jumped out and started to unwind the hoses to squirt at the bushfire. Now, Aidan wanted to be a fireman too, so I said, well, let's go and ask the fireman if you can be a fireman. So we asked, and the fireman said, sure, we could do an extra help. And the fireman gave Aidan a fireman's jacket, a fireman's helmet, some fireman's trousers, and fireman's boots. And then he gave Aidan a large hose pipe and said to Aidan, take this hose pipe and point it at the fire. And when you're pointing at the fire, turn the tap on and you'll squirt the fire to put it out. So Aidan ran with the hose pipe and it was unravelling from the fire engine. And when he got near to the fire, but couldn't go any closer because it was too hot, when he was close enough, he then turned the tap on the front of the hose and out squirted the water. Psh, and he sprayed and sprayed until eventually the fire was out. And everybody was really pleased that Aidan had put the fire out, and they all clapped. Anyway, it was now time to go back to the cave. Well, the real problem was we're in a very big country, which is very small on the map. So whilst it's easy to jump in, it wasn't so easy to jump out. What shall we do? I said to Aidan. I don't know. I said, well, we're going to have to find a portal. Somehow we can get back to the cave under our garden. Then suddenly I had an idea. Maybe if we dig a hole deep enough, we can dig our way all the way through the planet and come out the other side in our cave. Good idea, said Aidan. So we started to dig and dig and dig, going deeper and deeper down a tunnel, down a hole.
In the hole?
We're going through the middle of the earth, like that, to come out the other side. And finally, we got to the other side and we came up just in the right place into our cave under our garden. And then we looked around and we could see Australia through the tunnel on the other side. But as you know, when it's winter in Australia, it's summer in Switzerland, and when it's winter in Switzerland, it's summer in Australia. Well, by the time we got back, it was now winter and it was snowing. So we came up the stairs of the cave and went into our garden. And the garden was full of white snow. What could we do with the snow? What would you like to do with the snow?
Oh, I would build a snowman.
What a good idea. So we picked up some of the snow and started to roll balls. And the more we rolled them, the more the snow picked up the rest of the snow from the ground, getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, until finally we had snowballs almost as big as me. I couldn't push it anymore. Then we put another snowball on top of the biggest one, and on top of that we put a smaller snowball for the head. And what could we use as arms?
Sticks.
Yep, we found a couple of sticks for arms. What could we use for a nose?
A carrot.
A carrot. And what about eyes?
Dots.
Socks.
The dots.
Dots.
Yes.
How about stones?
Oh, that. Yes.
Stones. And what can we use for his buttons on his chest?
I don't know.
Buttons, or we could use real buttons, or raisins, or stones. I'm sure we'd find something.
Stones.
And then what could we use to keep his head warm?
A hat.
Yep. Put a hat on his head.
I want a snow hat.
Yes, a snow hat to keep the snow off. And then, you won't believe what happened. The snowman suddenly became alive and started jumping around. Hello, he said. Hello, Aiden. Hello, Daddy. And we said, what? A talking snowman? How unusual. Have you ever seen a talking snowman?
When you spell snowman doesn't talk.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I think I can think of a movie where I saw one talking. Can you think of the movie?
You mean, which movie?
We watched something on television a few days ago which had a snowman in it who was talking.
I want to watch it.
Something with the girl called, was it Lisa? I've forgotten the girl's name now. But something where she could turn the world into ice. There was a snowman there, wasn't there?
I told you snowman.
It was called Frozen. The movie was called Frozen, and it had a talking snowman. So that's what we had in our garden, a talking snowman. Oh, come in the house, Aiden said. You must be cold. It's very cold in the garden. Oh, thank you, said the snowman. So Aiden and the snowman held hands and walked into the house. Luckily, Daddy had the fire going in the living room, a very bright, hot, flaming fire which was warming the room. So Aiden and the fireman sat down in front of the fire to warm themselves, with Aiden holding his hand. Well, really holding the fireman's stick, which was as a hand. Now, it was so nice and warm, both the snowman and Aiden fell asleep in front of the fire. A few hours later, Aiden woke up and was quite horrified by what had happened. Aiden was lying in a pool of water. Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
It's because the snowman had melted in front of the fire.
But he fell down and melted. The fire melted.
The fire melted the snowman because snow, if it gets above a certain temperature, if it gets warm, it melts.
The fire melted the snowman.
Yes.
And while Aiden was asleep.
Yes. So Aiden was left clutching the stick, but no snowman. It had completely melted. And Daddy said, oh dear, you're all wet in the water. So Daddy changed his clothes, carried him upstairs to his bed, and kissed him good night. Now, when Aiden woke up the next morning, he said to his daddy, I really loved that adventure we had yesterday. And Daddy said, adventure? What did we do? Yes, Daddy, well, we went down to the cave and took the bumper cars, and then we went all the way to Australia and went to the beach and built a sandcastle and had ice cream. And Daddy said, I don't remember that. And then he said, yes, Daddy, we went to Australia and then we dug a hole and dug back into the cave. And Daddy said, cave? What cave? The cave in our garden. And then the snowman, Daddy, we built a snowman in the garden. And I took it in front of the fire. And it melted while I was sleeping. And Daddy said, oh, my little boy, it's not winter, there's no snow outside. You've just had a very long dream. And then Aiden realised that everything I've just told you was just a dream while he was asleep. He dreamed it. It was a nice dream though, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a very long dream. It was a very big dream.
A long dream, wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you have dreams sometimes?
But I have little dreams. And this is a tiny little dream.
Yes, when you wake up, you sometimes remember your dreams?
Yes.
And do you forget them quickly? I think you do. This is what happens to people. When they are asleep, they have a dream. And when they wake up, sometimes they remember the dream, but usually we forget what we dreamed very, very quickly. The only way to remember it is to tell somebody very quickly what you dreamed. Otherwise, you'll forget it. But that's what happened. You had a nice dream, and that's what the story was about. It was actually your dream. Would you like to have a dream as long as that?
Well, I can't because I don't have big dreams. I only have little dreams.
Well, maybe your dreams are much longer, but you only remember a little bit at the end of your dream when you wake up. Maybe that's the thing. Well, that's the end of the story, and now it's no more story time, and it's time for what? Sleep. Not now, because I want you to go to sleep. No, another story will keep you awake, but we'll do you promise you'll fall asleep before I finished? Because this is a very short story. It's only got 3 words. The baby fell asleep. Well, that's 4 words. Are you asleep? No, you're not. Okay, good night, Aiden.
Daddy.
Yes?
That was a little story.
That was a short story. You said be asleep before I finished it, and you weren't. Anyway, good night.